Great. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Stacey Barr. Welcome to this webcast on the paradigm shifts of PuMP. The thing is that if we want a breakthrough in how our organization reaches its goals and makes its impact, it likely requires us to shift our thinking first. So it is not enough to follow the 8 steps of PuMP, if you know what PuMP is, or fill out OKR templates, or drop succinct strategic objectives into bubbles on a strategy map. When we follow methods without first aligning our thinking to the principles that gave rise to them, all we do is retrofit the new method to our old ways of thinking. Now, new methods are required, they sure are, to get a breakthrough, because we know that doing the same old things in the same old ways will only get us the same old results. But regardless of the new methods that we adopt, they're not going to lead us to a breakthrough unless we shift our thinking first. And that's what we mean by the paradigm shifts of PuMP. These are changes in the models or patterns of our thinking about strategic performance management. Now, this webcast with me and our Asia Pacific PuMP partner, Mark Hocknell, is a great chance to explore some of the powerful ways that PuMP can shift our thinking so we really can have a measurable strategy that aligns everyone to achieve it. So quick introductions, just in case you don't know Mark or me. So that's me on the left, Stacey. I'm an organizational performance measurement specialist. It's been my thing since my career started in the early 1990s. So almost 3 decades ago, I created a performance measure methodology called PuMP, which has evolved into a great supporting methodology of just about every other strategic performance management framework that we know of. Our PuMP does this because it's built on principles that differ to many of these frameworks. And these principles ask us to think differently about organizational performance management. And that's what we're going to explore today with my co-host, Mark Hocknell. So Mark is our Asia Pacific PuMP partner, and he brings PuMP in all its shapes and forms to businesses and organizations across Australia, New Zealand, and the Asia Pacific. Mark, I think we've been working together. We must have met in 2006. I think it all began.
Yeah, I think it was 2006. Hi, Stacey, and hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Yes, for quite a while now, Stacey, we've been collaborating on and working with organisations of all sizes to leverage the value that comes from PuMP. And that value comes initially in shifting the way we think, and our approach then in the development of KPIs and measures to support strategy. So today, Stacey and I will guide you through exploring some powerful paradigm shifts for more successful strategy alignment and for more successful strategy execution. So here's a quick orientation of what we'll cover in this webcast. We'll first explore 5 of the most valuable paradigm shifts that create a breakthrough in how to create a results orientation and measurable strategy that every team can align with and contribute to achieving. And you will also learn some of the clues to identify which paradigm shifts might be needed or most important in your case. If you discover these paradigm shifts that are needed, or when you discover them that they're needed for your organization, perhaps, we'll give you some practical and simple actions that can trigger those shifts in thinking. And then we'll leave you with a choice to make. And that is whether you choose to adopt the more advanced techniques that are within PuMP, and then giving you then an ability to make and sustain these paradigm shifts. And that choice is really about learning not just the paradigm shifts of PuMP, but whether to learn the essential techniques that make them real and alive in your organization. So we'll share more details and options for you at the end of the webcast, but if you want to grab the link now, which is on your screen, this is how you can learn more about our next public blueprint training for PuMP in Australia, New Zealand, and across Asia Pacific. Or even the blueprint workshop itself, just for your organization. So PuMP is our flagship methodology. And all of these free webcasts we offer to give you a taste of PuMP's principles, the benefits, the impacts, and the techniques themselves. A global PuMP team have seen the difference PuMP has made in the world, and through the difference it makes in your organization's ability to then perform well on purpose and deliberately. This webcast will only touch on some of the PuMP's techniques, but only so far as to illustrate how they support those paradigm shifts. And with that, we should get started right away with that very first paradigm shift.
Here it is. Paradigm shift number 1 is focus on the result before the action. Now, we need to be clear about our results, the outcomes or the impacts that we want before we can know the best action to achieve them. Now, this is a shift away from monitoring goals based on what did we do and toward monitoring goals based on what did we achieve and how do we know. This paradigm shift highlights a tension between action and result. It's about finding a balance between the pressure to act quickly and the discipline to be result-oriented or result-driven. And of course, we need to act, but acting without intended results means actions waste more than they create. Now, the key to finding balance with this tension between results and action is to lead with purpose. This means defining our desired performance results and their measures first, and then choose actions to achieve those results and measures. So really, this first paradigm shift is about putting action and results in an appropriate order to get the results that we really want. Now, with PuMP, we start this paradigm shift very early in the strategic performance management cycle in how strategic plans are organized. Now, we often see that strategic plans follow a recipe, and that starts with setting goals and then choosing actions to achieve those goals and then deciding on the measures, like this example. So with a goal of improved condition of parks, jumping straight to an action to establish an improved park maintenance schedule, and then measuring the percentage of orders that are completed within schedule, work orders that are completed within schedule. So what often happens is that measures tell us how much action was done rather than how well the intended result was achieved. So see what happens now when we make the paradigm shift of focusing on the result first. We start with a goal that's written as a clear result, and then we design a measure or two to evidence that result. And only after that do we choose actions that are going to move those measures in the desired direction so that we know that we're achieving the results-oriented goal. And our example now would look quite different. One of the results we want from the original goal to improve condition of parks is that parks are enjoyable for everyone. And then we decide what measures would be evidence of that result. And then these turn out to be quite different to the original measure. We have number of park visitors, average length of park visits, and average community rating of park enjoyment. And these new measures lead to different actions, actually. To make the park more enjoyable for everyone, the action is develop a park infrastructure refresh plan based on researched community preferred activities. So with this paradigm shift, we start with measurable results or goals, and then we more confidently choose the best actions to improve them. And PuMP makes starting with measurable results really easy with the measurability test technique that it provides you with in step 2. Now, there are 3 clues to look for and test if your organization may need to make this paradigm shift of focusing on results before activity.
And the clues that your organization hasn't made this first paradigm shift yet, and that maybe you're still stuck in monitoring activities rather than results. The clues like this. The first clue is that goals or objectives describe actions, not results. When we're talking about goals like provide safety training to everyone or transition to 100% digital documentation. And of course, goals that are really actions are only going to lead to measures that count how much activity got done. But goals are supposed to be about the results we're trying to improve. And it's the impact that we're trying to have and the difference that we're trying to make. The second clue is that measures monitor then what is done rather than the impact of what is done. It's like having a measure to train 100% of staff in safety by December, or develop a digital transformation strategy by the end of the year. And this is really a confusion between project management, if you like, and performance measurement. Performance measures measure how well something is performing, not whether or not something got done. And the third clue is that KPIs or measures are counting how many widgets get made rather than their quality. And the widgets, in these cases, might be policies or number of community events or trained employees or innovations or automated processes, all that sort of stuff. And how much stuff gets done is never evidence of whether all that stuff is actually making the difference it was supposed to make. Why celebrate that you have hit your target for the number of employees trained in safety when accidents continue to happen at the same rate prior to the training? So we have a poll, and the idea is to find out if you see any of these clues and to much activity orientation in your organisation.
So you all should see the poll now. You can choose as many of these as you like, as many of these clues that you see. Clues of maybe needing to make paradigm shift number one. Just give another 10 seconds or so, Mark.
Yeah, but it's coming out very strong, isn't it? That it's still this focus on activity rather than the result of the activity. We tend to focus plans and strategy on what we're going to do, and therefore the measures end up being what got done. Did we do it on time? And if we get clever about it, we could even say, did we do it on budget? But it still doesn't get us closer to that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mark, I've ended the poll and sharing the results now so everyone can see what you're seeing.
Okay. So yeah, 92% are saying the measures monitor what's done rather than the impact. And the only way we can really get insights and learning about how to improve is to know the impact that our actions are having rather than what we've done.
Very cool. So yeah, seems like there's a few organizations that need to make this paradigm or consider making this paradigm shift. Okay.
So these
Poll results gone.
questions, yeah.
So we've found that this really has been a fairly tough paradigm shift to make for most people, but you can make some progress by asking questions that increase awareness of the difference between results and actions. So Mark, do you want to walk us through those?
Yeah. So these questions will be useful to reflect on your leadership or management team to help trigger that first paradigm shift. And question one is, how do we know our chosen actions are the right ones? It's useful to explore how the decision is made to do a particular project or a strategic initiative. And just be careful if it's chosen based on someone's wisdom or experience or opinion or just the opinion of the highest paid person. We need to be careful of those things that are selected rather than things that are based on evidence. Question two is, if we stop doing our chosen actions, who would notice and why would they care? It's the people affected by the actions we take the experience, the impact or the result or the difference that comes from it. So why they might care about the action is a clue to what that result is and what result is important to measure. And question three is, what different future should our chosen actions create for us? Every organization exists to fulfill a purpose, to make some part of the world better in some important way. And measurement should always have this same ultimate context, being patient in helping people understand this difference between results and actions. So having a variety of real-world and everyday examples of results versus actions will go a long way to help people in seeing the difference. And then we can start to experiment with reorganizing your strategic plan to follow the order that Stacey showed just a few moments ago. So making this first paradigm shift of focusing on the result before the activity will make it easier for paradigm shift number 2.
Which is align results through cause effect, not copy paste. So organizations are systemic, like the human body, where each part contributes unique results toward achieving the results of the whole. Now, this is a shift away from wanting to see the corporate scorecard in every team's scorecard and toward wanting to see how each team's goals contribute to the corporate goals, either directly or indirectly via the goals, perhaps, of other teams. Now, this paradigm shift highlights a tension between consistency and contextualization. It's about finding a balance between wanting every team's goals consistent with the strategic direction and wanting every team's goals contributing the most to the strategic direction. So yes, we want consistency to avoid teams going off on resource wasting tangents that don't align to strategic direction, but each team's greatest contribution to the strategic goals is dependent on their unique context within the organization. So the key to finding balance between consistency and contextualization with strategy alignment is by creating alignment through cause-effect goal relationships. Now, this paradigm shift is about bringing every team's results and measures together into a single story about the organization's direction, where they each set goals based on their unique contribution to achieving the organization's results. So we'll work through a quick example of how PuMP helps you do that. So alignment means that every part of the organization supports its ultimate results. And those results are defined, of course, by the strategic direction. So for a local government, let's say, part of their vision is that citizens love life here. The strategic goals of an organization, of that organization, directly support its mission and vision. And this result, that citizens live a healthy lifestyle, was chosen to support that vision. In this local government, there's a department called City Lifestyle, and one of their goals is to encourage open spaces bustling with activity. And within the City Lifestyle area is the Parks and Recreation team. And one result that, that they contribute to achieve the open spaces result is that parks are safe for everyone. They also contribute another result, which is that public parks are enjoyable for everyone. And we can even include the measures of results in the results map and actions as well. So I've just put in 2 boxes there for the actions. There's a project called Risk-Based Maintenance Project to make the parks safer, and Community-Driven Design Project makes the parks more enjoyable. And there are the measures, at least for the Parks and Recreation results. It's not this simple, of course, because there are more results that flesh out the full story of achieving just one strategic goal, let alone the whole organization. But this is logical and it's easy. And hopefully you can see the idea about why each business unit really doesn't need a mini-me copy of the corporate goals as their own goals. So PuMP makes this easy with the technique called the results map, which you're seeing a bit here. And what you can do now, I guess, is check for any of the clues that Mark's about to share with you that suggest that your organization could possibly make more of this paradigm shift of aligning results through cause effect rather than copy paste.
So these clues, Stacey just mentioned that your organization hasn't made this paradigm shift yet, is still using the copy paste method for alignment. So those clues are things like these. The first clue is obvious, that every team's scorecard is a mini version of the corporate scorecard. So simply take a look at each team's scorecard and have a look at it. But another related and powerful clue is that teams and people say they cannot connect their work to the vision, mission, or the purpose of the organization. The second clue is that teams complain that their KPIs and goals aren't relevant to what they do or what they're trying to achieve. Imagine if there is a corporate goal to reduce costs and another one to create more innovative services. So the team that has responsibility to create those innovative services will feel torn if they also have to reduce their costs at the same time. And what about the teams that don't create services for, say, external customers? Do they try to create innovative services for their internal customers, all of them, whilst also reducing cost? There's this conflict that's in there. But the third clue is when teams don't understand the strategy. Just because they have their own version of it doesn't mean that they understand how it was designed or even what that strategy means. They weren't part of the conversation to create it, most likely, and they probably don't even understand any of the weasel words that were contained within it. So let's run another poll and see if any of these clues of this copy-paste alignment are alive in your organization.
So I've launched the poll, Mark. Hopefully everyone can see it and start ticking which of those clues might apply to them. Great, they're finding it.
Yes. So we're seeing the results as they come in. So if I'm nodding, it's almost like watching which one's going to come up first or highest. And I'd say that one that's coming up there is the one I hear the most.
Yeah, same. I'll reveal it in a sec. I'll just give everybody that another 5 seconds to choose. And I'll end the poll now and share the results with everyone. There we go.
Thanks, Stacey. And look, everyone, thanks for going along with these polls and sort of looking at these clues and figuring out what are most relevant. But it's pretty scary when we think about it that at least 75% of teams complain that their KPIs and goals aren't relevant. I mean, we talk about lack of engagement that comes from that. It's huge. And if we all say that 50% of our organization or the people or the teams don't actually understand the strategy, that's pretty spooky as well, considering how much time and effort typically is put into developing a strategy. So this isn't a quick fix or a quick problem to fix because it affects the entire organization all at once. And it really only works when the senior leadership gets involved and starts from the top. However, but to make this paradigm shift more likely to happen for you, we need to start challenging that copy-paste method of strategic alignment because it doesn't bring alignment, as we've just seen in the poll we just did. So there's a few questions that we can use to start to challenge this whole paradigm shift about this copy-paste approach. And these questions can help trigger it for you and your teams and your leaders towards that second paradigm shift. And the question one is, for each strategic goal, which team has the biggest impact on it? So it makes no sense that every team has the same or any impact on every single strategic goal. What does make sense is that each team will likely impact one or two strategic goals more than others. So the second question is how much ownership could come from teams selecting their own goals and KPIs. Strategy doesn't get implemented without commitment, and commitment doesn't happen without ownership. If a strategic direction is clear and understandable to everyone, then it's easier for teams to set their own goals in the way that they can contribute to achieving that goal. And question 3 is, do we have any examples of where we found great leverage through cause analysis? So finding your own examples of high leverage performance improvements in your organization just proves that it can be done again. And this typically starts with root cause analysis. This is another paradigm shift that won't happen overnight. It might be good to start with just one team and build their alignment to the corporate direction as a model for others to be inspired by and follow. Just like Stacey showed a few moments ago, by building a slice of a PuMP results map helps create that cause and effect flow. So when this paradigm shift has happened, you can imagine how everyone can see their contribution to the organization's success. And that builds commitment and that builds ownership. And that makes then also a third paradigm shift very important to bring this to life.
And the third paradigm shift is to use measurement for improvement, not judgment. So what people believe a KPI or metric or performance measure will be used for, it fundamentally affects whether performance will improve or not. To get the most from people in improving organizational performance, we need to shift away from asking, how are you performing based on this measure, which is judging someone and how they're performing, and move toward asking, how are you using this measure to improve performance? And that encourages them to use measures as a tool for improving their process performance. This paradigm shift highlights a tension between accountability and learning. So we need to find a balance between making it psychologically safe to learn from failures and expecting commitment from everyone to perform. So it's entirely true that an organization can only improve faster by learning faster. It's also entirely true that it's through people that the results are achieved. Learning and improvement cultures will always outperform command and control cultures, and the role of measurement is a differentiator. So the key to finding balance between learning and accountability for performance improvement, I think, is to create a new definition of accountability. And this new definition of accountability should focus everyone on owning results and committing to the behaviors of performance improvement. Now, this paradigm shift is about making it safe for people to use measures to learn what isn't working well enough, find out why, and then change what isn't working. Now, one way that PuMP can help you make this paradigm shift is in how accountability is combined with learning through how we design performance dashboards. So in PuMP, we use this definition of accountability, which takes much of the threat away from measurement and therefore makes it psychologically safe to learn through measurement. So in PuMP, accountability equals monitoring the results that matter, plus interpreting the measures of those results validly, plus initiating action to shift those measures and improve the results if required. And these three responsibilities are supported by how PuMP designs performance dashboards. So each dashboard is for a team that shares responsibility for a set of results. Each result has its measures charts grouped within it to make it really easy to monitor the results that matter. And then each measure's performance gap and cause is summarized to help interpret the measures validly. And finally, a response is chosen for each measure based on closing its performance gap until targets are reached, which keeps the focus on initiating action when it's needed. Now, this means that people are not driven to defensiveness by judgment, but given the power to improve performance collaboratively. So PuMP makes improvement-based accountability easy with the dashboard design technique that it provides you with. So now ponder another 3 clues to test if your organization is yet to make this paradigm shift of using measurement for improvement rather than for judgment.
So these clues that your organization hasn't made this paradigm shift yet, the first one is that KPIs and measures are used to directly measure an individual's performance. In this situation, measurement is the enemy for so many people. It makes most people feel like their worth is being reduced to just a few numbers. And those numbers can be often outside their control or are trivial numbers that take the focus off the important things. Even if measures aren't used in employee performance management, the next clue can still create the same fears and cynicism. And the second clue is that managers and leaders use the KPIs to manage staff, but not processes. If KPIs are seen as rods for people's back, it means that someone else is using the KPI as a rod. Like when a manager of a team is using KPIs to monitor rework, but the team doesn't have access to those KPIs, but the manager makes sure the team's responsibility to reduce the rework. The third clue is that leaders, managers, and employees are held accountable for hitting those targets. This is known as metric fixation, which is a term used by Jerry Muller in his book, The Tyranny of Metrics. It means that people will only do what's needed to quickly hit a target. They might even manipulate the data, use vanity metrics, or take shortcuts just to hit those targets. And just as a disclaimer here, in my pre-pump days, I think I've done every single one of those three things. Because that's what you do. Anyway, let's find out if any of these things are valid for you.
Okay, there's the poll there now.
And they're the clues that measurement is used for judgment in your organisation, potentially rather than learning.
Just while everyone finishes contributing, Kim just asked, what was the book you just mentioned, Mark? So I'm just putting it in the chat now if anyone else is keen as well.
It's a great book.
I did an interview with Jerry Muller on that book, actually. It's somewhere on my website in the blog area. All right, that looks about good. I'll end the poll there and share the results with you all.
Again, we have a mix of results, but there's a clear, I can't even call it a clear winner. There's a clear outstanding issue here is with leaders and managers, employees are held accountable to hitting targets. And pardon me, in my previous life, when I was in that situation as well, either as a manager putting targets onto people and also having targets put on me, when you've got control of the data, it's pretty easy to make sure you're doing what you're doing. But those targets that are set are often the things that are the problem as well, because it means hitting the target is success rather than actually making an improvement.
Indeed. Okay.
So
the results gone.
Yeah. So if you want to make the paradigm shift away from measurement for judgment and closer to measurement for improvement, here are 3 questions to start raising awareness of that shift. So together with your leaders and colleagues, it's an idea to reflect on these questions that can help trigger that paradigm shift. First question is, why do we believe that organizational performance is driven mostly by individual employee performance? When leaders and managers judge each employee individually, it shuts down collaboration, shared learning, and drives individualistic behavior. And why is it that leaders feel that measuring people is the best way to go to get organizational performance? It really doesn't make sense. The second question, are we routinely getting large and sustained improvements in performance, or are they short-lived? When management and teams do not use KPIs as feedback on what is not working well, they can't fix it. This question helps to explore if too much guessing has led to solutions that are quick fixes or don't even work at all. And the third question is, what's more important to us, hitting targets or learning how to continually make performance better? This is a direct question that will hopefully raise awareness that hitting targets does not always equate to making performance better. It also might help to find one or two stories within your organization of where hitting targets made performance unexpectedly worse. So each of these questions is about trying to put a spotlight on bad assumptions about using measures to manage people. There's no doubt that it's hard to turn this around, but we have to start somewhere, like with these questions. And you can experiment with one team to adopt PuMP's definition of accountability and support that with PuMP's dashboard design. So when people feel ownership for improving performance through measurement, like with the PuMP dashboard we saw before, it also means they have more courage to make this fourth paradigm shift.
Courage to start measurement with evidence, not with data. So we're never going to get the data that we really need unless we start with the types of information that we need to understand the results that matter most. So this is suggesting that we shift away from defining our measures by asking what data do we have and what is feasible to measure, and moving toward choosing our measures based on what's relevant to our results and then finding the most feasible way to get that data. This paradigm shift highlights a tension between available data and relevant evidence. And to balance these two, we're really trying to reconcile making use of the readily and easily available data for reporting with the need to get the data that truly evidences the results that matter. We absolutely should make use of the data that we have, but we also need to make sure that we have the data that we need so we can inform the right decisions about the results that matter. The key to finding balance between relevant evidence and available data in selecting measures is to start with the real world evidence that is relevant to our result. After that, we consider the most feasible options to quantify that evidence into measures. Then and only then do we look to see what data we need to implement those measures, whether that data exists already or not. So let me show you how this can look using PuMP. So in PuMP, we never brainstorm measures or KPIs, and we never start with Google or some kind of AI to find measures. We take the lead by starting with our result. So we put our result front and center so we stay focused on it. And then we ask ourselves, what would we observe in the real world if that result was happening? And we may ask AI at this point to expand our ideas, but what we end up with here is a list of evidence, evidence that would convince us our result was happening. So for example, what would we see? Lots of people using the parks. What would we hear? We'd hear people saying how much they enjoy the parks. What would we detect in some way? Well, we'd detect from parking meters, maybe how long people are staying at the parks. And this is evidence, which is the basis for what we measure. So we ask ourselves how we could quantify that evidence. And each quantification is a potential measure for our result. It's absolutely okay if some of the potential measures are ones we already have or based on data that we already have. There's more that we do in PuMP to generate this list of potential measures, but we shortlist them to the best few, and hopefully this gives you an idea of how that works. And hopefully you can also see how we end up with measures that not only are direct evidence of the results we want, but are also the most affordable ones to implement as well. So PuMP makes designing powerful, relevant, feasible measures easy with its measure design technique that it provides for you. Here are another 3 clues, this time to test if your organization is yet to make this paradigm shift of starting measurement with evidence, not data.
And the clue is then that your organization hasn't made this paradigm shift yet and is still stuck in letting data decide what to measure are things like this. The first clue is that people rely on ready-made measures from analytics tools. Someone else has done the hard work. It's now as easy as clicking a few buttons, but this is the magnetic appeal of these ready-made measures that someone else has set up the data system and the data capture systems for. But how well do they know your strategy and what's most important for your organization? The second clue is to hear people say, yeah, but we've always measured that. It's hard to let traditional measures go, especially when there's nothing better to replace them. So many historically important measures stay on the dashboards or in the spotlight long after their time has gone, simply because it's easier to keep them than to design something better that we won't have the immediate data for. And the third clue is performance dashboards have lots of KPIs, but few relate directly to the goals that matter. Often, this is because a leadership team has asked for a dashboard rather than asking for meaningful evidence of the important results. So the dashboard vendor, or whoever builds that dashboard, relies on the data the organization already has, that their dashboard tool can automatically access. And after a short while, the dashboard isn't really used because the KPIs don't align to the strategic goals. So let's run another poll and see if any of these clues, the data decides what you measure rather than you selecting the measures that are best evidence of those results.
These poll results are coming in faster than the previous ones, Mark. I think there might be a bugbear. I'll give you all another 5 seconds. Okay, here come the results.
What's exciting, Stacey, is that we have a couple of people that said that none of those are there. So that's pretty cool.
That is exciting.
So, but that thing about we've always measured that thing, it's one of those things that keeps measures. I think it's mainly because people get comfortable talking about them rather than what the information is telling us. Performance dashboards have lots of KPIs, but few relate to the goals. One of the crazy ones I saw one time was a 64-page report, line items of data that went out every single month, and people would sit through it to pick the data they liked. But that's where you've got dashboards with data in it rather than measurement. So the key to making this paradigm shift away from letting data decide what you measure and towards measures based on evidence is to raise awareness of the cost of not getting new data. So with your leaders and colleagues, here are 3 questions again that can help trigger this paradigm shift for you. How often do we use the measures that we have? So how many measures are ignored completely? How many just lead to circular debate and no action? How many distract the conversation away from what actually matters? Secondly, are we reporting insightful measures or just data? One of my mantras is that data is not measurement, but measurement uses data to produce insights or evidence about a result. Thinking now about your measures, can you name the most insightful measures in your reports? And why are they insightful? And how much time and money is spent reporting the data we don't use or don't value? You can calculate this. Maybe you probably should. You can estimate how many people are involved in reporting performance data, estimate how many hours per month they spend doing that on average, estimate the average hourly wage, estimate the percentage of what gets reported that almost never gets used to take action. You can multiply all that together to get the cost of measures that aren't valuable. I'd suggest that would shock you. One of our past clients estimated that, and just for one department in a fairly large organization, the cost of all of this was almost $500,000 every single year. Now, training 10 people in the department in PuMP could eliminate that ongoing cost probably in 6 months for less than 5% of what gets wasted every year. So we have one paradigm shift remaining, and it's one that can make it much easier to make all the other paradigm shifts we just explored today.
Our fifth and final paradigm shift is to treat measurement as an integration, not an afterthought. Now, very often, measurement is not considered until after a strategic plan is published or after a change project has been designed and implemented. Here, we're talking about a shift away from tacking some KPIs onto our strategic plan as an afterthought and toward integrating the right measurement thinking into our existing planning processes. So this paradigm shift is a tension between retrofitting measurement and embedding it. It's about finding a balance between maintaining the strategic management approaches that you're already using and achieving more meaningful measurement than those approaches are currently capable of. We absolutely should maintain the strategic planning and execution processes that we have in place. But because many of them lack detailed measurement guidance, we need to fill those gaps, and we fill it with a good measurement approach. So the key to finding this balance between integrating versus retrofitting measurement is to integrate a proper measurement approach with what you already have in place and working. And we do this by plugging in the appropriate parts of the measurement methodology to fill gaps in those existing systems and processes. This paradigm shift is about building in an approach to measurement that is consistent across your organization and that can support all your existing strategic management processes that need it. So integrating a measurement approach should feel like an improvement on how we do those other things. It should not feel like another thing to do. Now, the only deliberate and complete performance measurement approach we know of is our PuMP methodology. Let us know if you're aware of another one. In its basic form, PuMP is an 8-step process that a team follows to choose, implement, and use performance measures to achieve result-oriented goals. So I'm not going to dive into PuMP, into these 8 steps now. You can get a really good walkthrough at pump.academy/PuMP. That's pump.academy/PuMP. The point that I'd really like to stress now is that each of PuMP's steps contains a detailed technique to properly perform the steps of what's required to choose, implement, and use powerful performance measures. And any or all of these techniques can be integrated into your existing strategic management approaches like balanced scorecard, OKRs, even any sector or industry-specific planning framework you might use. Like local government uses a lot of, has their own approach, and supply chain management, healthcare probably does too. But even any bespoke planning approach that you may have developed, it's going to be able to integrate and support them. The chances are very high that even with the approaches you're using, you still have struggles getting the most meaningful measures to guide your strategic and management decisions. I mean, we've seen that in the polls today. PuMP's techniques plug into the gaps to end those struggles and make your existing strategic management approaches stronger. I've got just one way to help you visualize what I'm trying to say here. So we start with PuMP and its 8 steps in the center here. And then we can show how steps 2, 3, and 4 of PuMP directly support any strategic planning framework that you are using, and how PuMP steps 5, 6, and 7 give you the detail to how to do performance reporting and monitoring, regardless of what reporting systems you're using. Then steps 7 and 8 will clearly give direction to performance and process improvement, regardless of the process improvement framework you might use, Agile, Lean Six Sigma, whatever. And also that every step in PuMP, as it turns out, gives extra support and structure to the entire strategy execution process. So because PuMP is a framework agnostic approach, it fits into anything that you're currently using to fill the gaps and support it insofar as the measurement requirements go. Okay, so 3 clues to look for and test if your organization hasn't yet made this final paradigm shift of treating measurement as an integration rather than an afterthought.
So 3 questions again, exactly how do we set our goals, decide how to measure them, monitor them, and learn. Do
Oh,
we,
Mark, have you jumped ahead?
have I have 2. They're the clues that these questions are the clues that your organization hasn't made this paradigm shift yet and is stuck or still stuck in seeing measurement as an afterthought. And these are things like this. So the first clue is searching for ready-made KPIs. And this is really the minimalist approach, if you like, to performance measurement, and rarely sticks because it fails to build buy-in and fails to focus on the measures that really matter to us. And no, you can't even trust AI to curate meaningful KPIs for you without using a methodology to guide it, like we explored earlier in Paradigm Shift 4. The second clue is training people in KPIs, but not coordinating and supporting implementation of the KPI learnings. Training is important to unlearn bad KPI habits and also to learn new techniques to select meaningful KPIs. But training doesn't change much, particularly if the existing processes have so much momentum that the new ideas can't land. Third clue is an absence of a clearly documented strategic performance management system. If you cannot map out or describe the steps of exactly how strategy is designed and aligned and executed, you won't know when and where to improve the measurement. So again, let's run a poll and see if any of these clues are relevant for you and your organization.
I've got a guess about which one's going to come out on top here, which one's going to be the most chosen. Oh, and so far I'm not exactly right. Oh, yes, I am. We'll see. I'll give you all another 10 seconds or so.
Can't see the poll this time.
Oh, okay. It's there and it's happening, Mark. So
Right.
when I share it, hopefully you will see it. If not, I'll. Okay, ending now. Here come the results to everyone. Can you see it, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, the one that I thought would come out as most popular is it's C, absence of a documented strategic performance management system. I think very often we just jump ahead and do stuff. We grab a bunch of ideas from some webcasts and YouTube videos and reading a few articles in Harvard Business Review or a few pages or chapters out of someone's book, and we just jump in and start doing it, but we don't think of how to actually make it a part of our organization and document it clearly. If we can't document it clearly and describe how it happens, how can we make it better?
Yeah. And quite often leaders and managers will follow a sort of a process for developing strategy, but then the next steps that support the performance management and the implementation of an execution of strategy just gets lost. And still searching for ready-made KPIs, the ones that the data we've already got is there. And I think it's still exciting that one person says none of these. That's awesome.
Yay, go you, whoever it was. That's good. Lovely. All right, I'm taking the polls away.
Thanks for getting involved, everyone, and going along with those polls. And to trigger this paradigm shift, there really needs to be more awareness of the approaches your organization is using, even if they're not documented. So we've got 3 questions again that can help you move and shift the thinking or get more ideas about how to trigger the paradigm shift we're talking about. And that's exactly how we actually set goals, how we decide to measure them and monitor them and learn them and do regularly check on those measures. If we see actions are not having the impact on our measures, do we stop it? So 2, what are the steps in our current approach to measurement? This could be a flowchart. This might be a documented set of business procedures. It might be a specific methodology you choose, like PuMP. But if you can't describe the approach you take to measure performance, you really can't expect too much from your measures. And that last question, do we always have a goal with a measure and a target before we decide the actions? This question is very specific. It is so much a part of the approach many organizations take that it deserves its own spotlight. If the answer is no, then it means that measurement is not really built into the organization's strategic performance management process. And there you have it, the 5 paradigm shifts that we think are the most important to make to lead a measurable strategy that aligns everyone to achieve it. Here's a quick summary for you now. So try all we want to, and try all that you want to fix your KPI problems with software and frameworks and templates and consultants, but none of these will have the impact they could have if the thinking in your organization about how to set strategic goals, how to measure them, and how to get the organization aligned stays the same. So it's paradigm shifts like these that are the starting point to fixing your KPI problems. Focus on the result before the activity. Align results through cause and effect, not that copy-paste. Use measurement for improvement, not judgment of people. And start measurement with evidence, not just data that's available. And treat measurement as an integration, not an afterthought. Remember what Einstein is often quoted as saying, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used to create them. So now I'm sure you can relate to at least one of these paradigm shifts, but let's not assume, let's find out.
One final poll. Here it comes. Which of these paradigm shifts do you think is most important for your organization to make right now? In other words, which shifts in how we think about measurement might make the biggest difference, I guess, for your organization's success? I'll give you a few seconds to choose now. There's a clear winner with this one too. Can you see it yet, Mark?
I can, thank you. Stacey's talking about the first paradigm shift.
Yeah, I'll just a few more seconds, everyone, and I'll end the poll. And yeah, share the results with you all.
It's not surprising, is it, everyone, that the first paradigm shift is where it all starts. If we're focusing on activity straight up, all that's going to happen is everything that flows on from that is going to be a challenge because it's stuck in measuring the activity in the first place. So that first paradigm shift about focusing on results, before we start focusing on the activity that will improve that result, it's the biggest shift, and it's the one that gives us the most payoff too, I think, in terms of where we start.
That's a really good way of saying it. And I think that's probably appropriate that we had it as the first one, given that it's clearly the one that most people feel is the right one to start with. So yeah, thanks everybody for participating in those polls. So through this webcast, Mark and I wanted to show you that strategic measurement can be far easier and more effective when we shift our thinking about what measurement's really about. We wanted to share with you how PuMP already exists to help you do that. And our hope is that you'll try PuMP if you're not using it already. And that can be as easy as starting just 1 or 2 people in learning the PuMP blueprint and using it with 1 or 2 teams internally to see how well it works for you. We want your measurement related struggles to end. That's why we do what we do, why we have stayed committed to it for so long. Now, if this is your want also, here are some options for how you can get those 1 or 2 people started learning PuMP.
So as we've said before, PuMP is our flagship methodology, and we deliberately use the term methodology because it's research backed and it's been around for more than 20 years, 30 years. And to help organizations and proven in different languages and different cultures and in different countries. But anyway, it's our flagship methodology. And to help organizations get more from their strategic performance management approaches through meaningful measurement and all the things that flow on from that we've talked about today. We believe that PuMP's techniques should be integrated into every organization that truly wants to achieve its goals, no matter which approaches they use to design, plan, and execute their strategy. We believe this because PuMP has what just about every strategy and improvement approach is missing. And what you've experienced some of this through each of these 5 paradigm shifts that we've explored today. On top of that, PuMP is uniquely practical in how Stacey has translated the principles and concepts of proper performance measurement into a step-by-step set of techniques and tools and conversation guides that make it far more natural and engaging to do. Team-based. Depending on your role and your situation, we have a range of ways that you can learn and implement PuMP. We have a PuMP blueprint training workshop coming up in June. That's 5 half days online, so you can join from anywhere. And all the details are over at pump.academy/blueprint, where you've got this link there, where you can also register. Or if you think a private workshop for you, your work colleagues, your teams, if that would suit you better, you can also read about that option at the website that's there. And if you're a leader, we also have a program specifically designed for your leadership team. And you can book a discovery discussion to get a taste of that by emailing team@PuMP Academy. So,
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everyone. Mark and I are happy to stay on the webcast with you for a little bit longer now to answer as many questions as you might have about PuMP or your experiences with measuring performance. So if you do have a question, go right ahead and type it in the chat now. I have got one question that has already come through in the chat, Mark, from Kim, about have we observed any industries doing this better than others? And that was point C. And if I recall correctly, that was about paradigm shift 5. And that is mapping out and actually being able to map or flowchart a strategic performance management process. Look, I'll get my experience out of the way first. I just don't think people do this. I don't think they've seen the value of it yet. And I think it's just such a powerful thing to do that we're missing. So personally, I've not seen any organizations really document their strategic management approach. Have you, Mark?
Documented strategic management approach. I don't think so. I think and we've worked across, I think I've pretty much worked in almost a lot of industries anyway, but I don't think there's any industry or even a sector that does any of this stuff well, because everyone's picking up bits and pieces of how to design a strategy, how to implement. That's the project management space. That's the design thinking space. It all sort of tries to bolt things together without actually having a method that flows through the whole lot of it. So it's piecemeal. And therefore, if a leader or a manager in any industry or sector has used something that they liked before, that normally follows them around.
Yeah, indeed. And look, the fact that it follows them around is not a problem, but wherever they're using it, I think everybody needs to see how it works and have the opportunity to plug it with techniques that just make it work even better. Okay, another question.
So from Eleanor.
Oh, there
So
we go. Yep.
Eleanor's asking, have you got any tips for engaging execs to slow down? So that's a great question. To slow down and allow for the time it takes to build these paradigm shifts and the time it takes to then get to the point of having appropriate measures on a dashboard. So firstly, yes, we've got tips for that. And in the same way that Stacey earlier in this webcast showed how you go from a activity to a result and then had a results building out that results map. I've done that, I don't know how many times with lots of different teams, but particularly with execs, you can slow down their thinking in a 3 or 4 hour meeting and get them to start thinking about the result first before the measures. And that doesn't take, once they get that paradigm shift in their minds and they see the difference, it's almost instant, especially when you can follow it up with using the PuMP technique to show them how the new language that they're creating in measurable results can get mapped out and therefore becomes easier to use. So it's once that paradigm shift switches in here, that can be milliseconds for some people, it can be 5 minutes for others, but it works pretty quickly. And that's the first one that we rated on the polls as well as the most important one. So that is the place to stop, but it's not something that takes days or months. It's literally seconds, minutes, or maybe half an hour, 30 minutes.
That's absolutely right. I think this is the benefit, and probably this is another tip, Eleanor, in from a slightly different angle. To slow people thinking down, you need a framework. You need a container that can hold that and guide that thinking. It's not just, slow down your thinking. You need something that helps the thinking slow down. And something like the like PuMP step 2 with the measurability tests and the results map, where we're thinking about result-oriented goals and how they all connect together. It's a technique that guides the right kind of conversation that makes the thinking slow down in a way. And Mark, I don't know how you find it recently, but when I used to facilitate these sessions for leadership teams, I'd get a really common response when when paradigm shift 1 kind of happened, when it flipped in their heads, and they would say, this is the conversation we should have had years ago. I love hearing that because it means it meant so much to them to do that. They just need that little opportunity to feel it. So start with paradigm shift 1. It's often the most important one, because when that shift happens, it opens up the opportunity for the other shifts to start happening as well, I think.
And to just keep on expanding on that, if we think about without that first paradigm shift of going to results before the actions, most of the debate that occurs in leadership and management teams is what are the best actions? And then you get debates on stuff that doesn't have a context because we haven't agreed first on what the result is. So when they start to all agree on what the chosen results are, that is really unifying for the team. And it really brings them together rather than some leaders or managers may not buy into all the best actions that someone else outvoted them on, and they'll go and do their own thing. And then you get that fragmenting occurring in the organization rather than alignment that comes from focusing on a agreed set of results.
Eddie's question, Eddie, you submitted this question when you registered for the webcast. I think kind of is in a similar vein to this, how will KPIs work in education sectors? And I'm going to suggest that it starts with paradigm shift 1, because I think in education sectors, what's really hard is articulating the results or outcomes that we want from education, and who is getting those outcomes, and that it just starts with that discussion. So shifting away from what are all the things we do, how many students do we have, how are their test scores going, that's not the place to start. The place to start is paradigm shift 1. What are the results or outcomes that we really want from education?
Yep. And again, that paradigm 1, just thinking about it again, as soon as the leaders are thinking about actions, they immediately go to, we can count how many of these things are done. Is it done on time? Is it done on budget? And then all of a sudden you've got this flow on effect that leads us to,
So what?
yeah, exactly.
So what? Yeah, that's it. Maybe one more question here. Nathan, you had asked when you registered how, just a fairly general question, how do you design metrics to inform existing KPIs? I wanted to kind of respond to this one, Mark, because I mean, you and I hear this in Nathan's question. There is a challenge with terminology in this field. I would say that where Nathan and the team need to start is defining the difference between a metric and a KPI. Because in our world, they all look the same. A metric, a KPI, a performance measure, a performance indicator. They're all different words for the same thing. But because a lot of organizations have never defined those things, these terms get thrown around and they kind of look like they mean something different, but they're not. And we all get so confused before we start. So this doesn't necessarily relate to any particular paradigm shift we've spoken about today, but it can be a mess for a lot of people, the terminology. We've got to start with definitions of things, because really it's hard to answer that question. How do you design metrics to inform existing KPIs? That question could mean so many things to me. How do you design metrics to inform existing goals if you're using KPI to mean some kind of goal or objective? Or it could mean, how do you quantify data to build the KPIs that you want to? So yeah, but regardless, PuMP steps 2 and 3 work hand in hand to design the right quantitative evidence of the results we're trying to improve. So that idea of measure and evidence and result, these words are very clearly defined in PuMP, which makes it so much easier to make progress.
And if I can add on to Stacey, KPIs often have targets attached to them, such as 100% of something, or improve by 20%, or this many things. And throughout those 8 steps of PuMP, there is, as Stacey just said, clear definitions of a result statement. The measures always have to be quantifiable evidence of that particular result. And then we document those measures. And then when we have them in place, if they're important to us to change the baseline of current level of performance, then we can set targets on them. So then you have a result and you have a performance measure, you have that measure documented, and then you can set targets on the ones that you want to improve. And it's that structure that makes KPIs far more meaningful, because you've got a definition for each one of those terms and you've got a structure for how it works, because the KPI doesn't sit on its own. The KPIs, which is a performance measure with a target, is still connected to one of those result things that we talked about in paradigm shift 1.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it makes it more meaningful, but it also makes it more doable, because we understand what we're doing. We understand the pieces that we're moving around on the chessboard, so to speak, and putting things together. Chessboard's a bad analogy, but we understand the pieces in a jigsaw maybe that we're putting together and what goes where, which means we're not spinning wheels and chasing our tails in circles when we're trying to make some progress. Yeah.
And if I can keep on that particular point, oftentimes when we set targets, they're ambitious, and whether we hit them or not is irrelevant. It's how close we get to them. And it's always moving towards the target rather than hit or miss. And yet with most KPIs that I've seen, it's if you don't get it, it's please explain, rather than somebody was too ambitious in setting that target in the first place.
Yeah, that's it. Well, there you go, everyone. 5 paradigm shifts of PuMP. And hopefully that has given you another way to think about this PuMP methodology and how much it can help you to get your organization to achieve the results that matter. Thank you so much for joining us. Mark, as always, thank you so much for working with me to share this with everyone.
Pleasure, Stacey, and lovely to be online with you and to have these conversations about PuMP.
Lovely. Okay, everyone, until next time, we really hope you feel more inspired to give PuMP a try. Catch you soon.
Thanks, everyone.